Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy with a Boba Fetish that felt a bit let down by the lack of the Macho Mandalorian in this episode. After last week's cliffhanger, it did seem like he was going to be a big part of this entry, but unfortunately it looks like we're going to have to wait longer than the sarlaacs digestion period to see him again. Sad times. Anyway, there's still a lot to unpack, and this episode centers around Mando basically doing an escort mission through Hogwarts Forbidden Forest with Moes Pickled Eggs. It feels very fillery, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't think much happens. However, break it down we must. Now we pick up immediately after last week's entry with Mando racing across Tatooine on his speeder. We didn't mention it last week, but I believe that this is actually Anakin's speeder from Attack of the Clones, and if our theories about Cobb Vanth being his pod racer are true, then this is a nice little nod to both the rides that the character had on the planet. Some raiders in the desert set up a trap for the character in order to try and capture the child. However, Mando uses his wits to defeat them, and after tricking one of them into taking his jetpack, he sends the character flying through the air. Now when they used rope to bring down the speeder, I was a little bit worried about Baby Yoda. However, seeing what the guy does in this episode, I'm actually pretty mad at him. I'm just kidding, I can't stay mad at you. Now after the title scene, we cut to Mando arriving at Mos Eisley, namely the Cantina. You may remember that when it first appeared in A New Hope, there was a strict no droids policy. However, last season we saw that this had been lifted, as one was serving behind the bar, and it looks like it's retained its job, as it still remains here. Peli Motto is playing Sabacc with an insectoid, who she refers to as Dr. Mandible, and this famous card game has appeared at multiple points throughout the saga. Han Solo actually won the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian whilst playing this game, after the former stole one of the latter's cards, which stopped him from cheating. From Ant-Man, Mando learns of a contact that will apparently take him to some Mandalorians, and he returns to the hangar from last week with Peli to meet our female frog contact, who pretty much becomes central to the episode. Now, I'm not 100% on this species here, but I believe it's the female version of one of the lizard-like aliens that we saw in the cantina during A New Hope. She sort of becomes the MacGuffin of the episode, and this Children of Men-esque entry sees Mando escorting her and her eggs across the galaxy. She wants to reach the estuary moon of Trask, which will be hospitable for her children. Here with her husband, their species will rise again, and this must be completed before the equinox in order to stop her line from ending. Now an equinox is actually the instant of time when the plane of our Earth's equator passes through the geometric centre of the sun's disk. This occurs twice a year around the 20th of March and 23rd of September, but who knows how it differs in the Star Wars galaxy. Now she has apparently seen Mandalorians on the planet, but whether this will turn out to be related to Sabine Wren or not remains to be seen. I kinda wish this was a longer entry and we got more substantial plot development here, as like I've said, I don't really feel like it advanced the story that much. It did however make me want to have some medium rare dragon steak and eggs. Now I love how they basically have a droid cooking the crate dragon steak in front of a pod racer engine, and I think that it may actually be Sebulba's, however it is difficult to make out. Mando isn't able to jump to hyperspace because of the eggs, and thus he must carefully navigate the system, avoiding a giant nest of spiders, and Baby Yoda, who also seems determined to end the species. To make matters worse, when the group enter the sector, they're swarmed by a pair of X-Wings that are patrolling the area, looking for Imperial holdouts. We learn that all craft must run beacons since the fall of the Empire, and you really get the idea that the rebels may be as controlling as the Imperials were. However, they simply don't really have the manpower to run the galaxy properly. There were several theories that they relied too heavily on droids, which we saw as part of the Prisoner episode last season, and this pretty much caused a lot of instability across the galaxy. Thus, the First Order was able to rise, and this aesthetic kind of teases towards the events of The Force Awakens. Now through subtitles, I learned that the names of these pilots were Carson and Wolf. Unfortunately, this isn't Commander Wolf, who you may know from Clone Wars, but the white beard could be a little nod towards him. They try and verify who Mando is, but due to him being on the run because of the events of Chapter 6, he refuses to hand over his pin and tries to outrun them. This leads to a chase through the skies, and the group crash on an ice planet, which leaves them stranded there for pretty much the rest of the episode. Now when this first appeared in the trailers for the show, many believed that it was Ilium. However, if the theories about it becoming Starkiller base are true, then that would mean that construction would be well underway at this point, and thus it probably isn't. The ship gets busted up badly, and with Baby Yoda eating eggs like they're going out of fashion, they're on a pretty tight clock. Due to the language barrier, Mando and the frog female are unable to communicate with one another. However, they manage to talk after she activates Zero, who too appeared in the prisoner episode. That entry becomes integral to this one, and after Mando saved Lieutenant Devan, he pretty much receives a get out of jail free card, which we'll get into in just a bit. Now the actor who played Devan has also played Anakin Skywalker several times, so it's nice that they brought him up again here. Anyway, Zero, voiced by Richard Ayoade, helps the female to talk, and she pretty much guilt trips Mando into honouring his word. She ends up leaving the craft in order to take a hot bath with her eggs, and Mando follows her using the detective vision that he also put in place to follow Cara Dune. Upon arriving at the hot baths, all hell breaks loose as Baby Yoda unwittingly awakens a swarm of spiders. What the hell is the matter with you? Have you not been watching Alien, you idiot? Now we don't know what this species is for definite, but I think that it's a Krykna. Typically, these creatures are natives of Atollon, however that planet doesn't really look like the one we see in this entry, so I'm not sure that they're the same. Kryknas are actually resistant to blaster bolts, and this invulnerability ranges from rifles all the way up to ship blasters. That isn't really the case here, which is why I have some doubts. However, they are very similar in design. Due to their sensitivity to their environment, they're actually very difficult to control or tame with the Force, and even the most accomplished Jedi have difficulty combating them. After capturing their prey, they tend to cocoon them in their underground hives, and using their fangs they feast on whoever is unlucky enough to get caught in their web. Their weakness is primarily the signals emitted by sensor beacons, and damaging their eyes also pains them to great effect. The creatures have also appeared on Dagobah, and they're pretty much an arachnophobic's worst nightmare. Now whilst Mando and co manage to escape their lair, the Rays are swarmed by the creatures. It's only upon the arrival of Carson and Wolf that the group is saved, and we discover that they've decided to let Mando go because of the good deeds that he did during the prisoner episode. His mission of course led to the capture of several highly wanted criminals, as well as the death of Ran, who we know was running the organisation. Thus, they chalk this up as even, and allow Mando to get away scot-free. I also love how we can see little TIE fighter symbols on their craft, which showcases how many ships they've taken down. Mando fixes up the crest, and together with the group he continues his journey to Trask, and hopefully more Mandalorians. We learn that they won't be able to leave the cockpit, as that's the only place Mando can pressurize, and it's safe to say that the ship has seen better days. Now going forward, I do think that we will be seeing Sabine Wren sooner rather than later. The episode she appears in seems like it's taking place on a ferry, and if Mando is still escorting the female and her eggs, then he'll likely have to go across this. The Rays are pretty buzzed up at this point, so I can imagine that he'll have to arrange alternate transport in order to get her to her goal. There's also the fact that Boba Fett is out there in the galaxy, aware that Mando has his armour. I can't really see him returning until they go back to Tatooine. However, with the armour being taken off planet, he could indeed be heading out after them. I really did hope that we would just jump straight into that story, so it was a bit frustrating to not have that tease last time really go anywhere, but then I don't know what I'm talking about because Mandalorian has always been like that. Anyway, as I said, this episode was a bit fillery, and hopefully next time we're in for a bit more plot progression than what we got here. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode, so make sure you comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video then please drop a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our breakdown of Cobb Vanth, which is going to be linked at the end. We go over everything you need to know about the character and his role in the expanded universe, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. Don't forget we're giving away 3 copies of the Marvel Phase 2 box set, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below. The winner is going to be chosen at random on the 30th of November, so make sure you get involved. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on the Discord server, linked in the description, or at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video. You've been the best, I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.